Girls would come to my house and go, this is weird. Like, why do you have 2 rooms stacked top to bottom with sneakers? Did you ever see me not fresh? That's why I'm always fresh. Why do you have 40 leather jackets? Because I'm always fresh. Why do you have 100 pair of jeans? Why do you have all of that? Because I'm about being fresh. What you about? Why you here? You here because you seen me and I was fresh. This thing that they call a sneaker culture, that's not what it is for me. It's about being fresh.
Sometimes you look at a sneaker and you're like, that's a beautiful looking shoe. Sometimes you like the shoe more because you know the inspiration behind it.
I could make an Air Max 90 look like bacon, and I just saw it in my head.
To come from the hood, not being able to afford Jordans, to actually get ridiculed for wearing Kmart sneakers, and to now be able to design a pair of Jordans, it was unreal.
It wasn't like Supreme just grew like overnight. It was something that was like a long time coming.
The clientele changed completely. This shoe didn't invent sneaker culture, I think it just put it on the map.
It was 1993. I was in California for a trade show, and then I ran into my boy Chappie. Chappie was like, hey, are you coming back to New York? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, why? He's like, dude, we're opening up a shop. New York had started a year before. We had just done the movie Kids also, like during that time. So it's like New York all together was like aligning, like it was like Voltron. It was like boom, like this crazy force that came out of nowhere. Back in the day, Supreme was pretty much like a clubhouse. It smelled like weed in there. We had to light up incense. But we kept the store pristine. We always made sure that everything was nice, neat. We treated it like a retail store, but we made sure that we were respected too at the same time. So we just had like an I don't care attitude, but like buy it if you don't want it, goodbye.
The staff wasn't friendly, like they weren't like interested in helping you shop. If you walked in, they would ignore you if you were lucky. I mean, or they would ridicule you, make fun of you. Like it wasn't like an easy place to go into, which was also, I think, a representation of the times because that era was like you had to like prove yourself. People outside of skate culture did not know anything about it. They didn't really care about it.
We had no clue like how this street culture was gonna take off at all. For us, it was like, oh, I gotta go to work. Until it caught on somehow, and we're just like, wait, something's happening now that we're not sure of. And then when we finally figured it out, I was like, holy crap, look at us. We're like the face of this whole street culture stuff. Here we are, Lafayette Street, where the magic happened. So, you know, here goes 274 Lafayette Supreme. This is all furniture stores back then, all vintage furniture stores. So like, we were the only kids on the block, and then 555 Soul moved in. Then Liquid Sky, Extra Large also moved in. So it's like the community started. I mean, just like fun times, like we'd just play a game of skate outside every day. Like, the store wasn't like this, like the way it's packed now. It'd be like super slow, so we'd just hang out, just chill out, have fun. You know, everyone come in from out of town, and just like skate around. Coming here now, it's crazy. Like, seeing like the line, like people that lined up on a Sunday on a rainy day, never back then. Like that would never happen, you know. It would be like, select friends would come through and people would come hang out. But like this is like unheard of. I would never thought this would happen at all. When we teamed up with Nike, it was just a beautiful collaboration because finally Nike did it right. The Dunk is something that was special also in New York because that's a sneaker that every kid wants to wear. And that because we had the special colorway and we had majority of it, people were just tripping out. Sneaker culture just became something that was insane.
Damn, this is my size. Limited Footwear was just kind of picking up steam, and you know, it had all the ingredients to make this such a grail, and it's why it's respected as one of the best dunks ever made. Some grails are really hot for that moment. This has a lot of staying power.
The materials started to really, really stand out, like how you gotta step your game up with what you're doing with shoes. This is the first dunk that like really made me think about what I would do with shoe design.
There's nothing bigger. I travel around the world, and everywhere you go, even at all the bootleg stores, it's like all Supreme. Every kid you see is in Supreme, Supreme hats, Supreme shirts. It's amazing. It's crazy that they went from one little skate shop in New York to this international powerhouse brand. It's like the biggest thing in the world. And this is one of their first things that got them a lot of hype.
It wasn't like Supreme just grew like overnight. It was something that was like a long time coming. You didn't ask me in 1994 like that would happen. Not a damn clue. What we were doing and where it's at now, never would have thought. Never, not in a million years.
The word OG gets thrown around way too often. DJ Clark Kent is the personification of OG. He is like your uncle who you feel like is really family. It just so happens that he discovered Jay-Z and he connected him with the Notorious B.I.G. and he knows everything about sneakers.
I think the tipping point was all of the older guys in our neighborhood had pretty girls. We were young trying to figure out how they got the pretty girls, and we would look at them, and something we always thought was where their sneakers looked great. So all I cared about was sneakers and records when I was coming up. My hunt was find sneakers that no one had, that's one. Two, make sure they were actually fresh. Don't buy a pair of sneakers because nobody got it. Because if you come to the block and it's terrible, they're gonna be terrible. You know what I mean? But make sure you found dope, and when you rocked it, the right people saw it, so those necks got broken. This thing that they call a sneaker culture, that's not what it is for me. It's about being fresh. That's the reason why I can't wear a pair of sneakers more than one time, because if they're dirty, they're not fresh. It's about being fresh, and it was always about being fresh. I own 140,000 records. You won't think that's weird because you know I'm a DJ. But if I own 6,000 pair of sneakers, you think it's weird because I only got 2 feet? Nah, I gotta be fresh. Brooklyn is the hardest working city. It gave me my work ethic. It gave me my hustle, gave me my grit. It gave me my edge. It's the toughest borough in New York, so it gave me my toughness. It gave me my belief that I could be the best at anything I wanna be. Brooklyn's everything to me. It's the best city in New York. That's it. I got signed to be a consultant to Nike back in 2006, 2007. In my first meeting, I was like, can I make a shoe? And they were like, slow down, Playboy. We're here to talk about something else. So the meeting happened, and right as soon as the meeting was over, I was like, can I make a shoe? What would you call it? And I was like, Brooklyn. And they were like, do you have to be so literal? I said, well, that's what it represents to me is Brooklyn. And they were like, well, can you be better? So I thought, okay, well, Brooklyn, 718. And I was like, 718? And I was like, no. They were like, why no? And I said, 718 could be Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, or the Bronx. All of them. It has to be Brooklyn. I kept sitting around and I thought about the numbers 112. 112 is the first 3 numbers of every Brooklyn zip code. So it definitely represents Brooklyn. It kind of bugged me out to walk in a store the morning of, before the store is open, and see a shoe that I worked on. And they sold out the same day. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Nike, hey, that worked out really well. What you want to do now? I got to do a shoe. And that shoe gave me the ability to do 75 shoes so far. That started everything. Everything that comes from anything that I do in shoes started with this one pack. So it worked well, the colors work well, and they're easily worn. That's the thing, like I don't wanna make shoes that people are confused about wearing. I wanna make a shoe that when you see it, you go, it's black and gray, I'm gonna wear that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to be confused. I don't want you to sit it on the shelf and praise it. I want you to actually put it on, walk outside and make people go, those shits are dope. Because if you don't wear them, then how are people gonna know that the shoe is dope? Or how's the average kid gonna be able to go, your shoe is dope? Because that's what we did it for when we were kids. We wanted shoes, we wanted kids to go, them shits is fire. I want the kid to have that moment. I don't make shoes for myself, I make shoes for consumers so that they can consume them and do what you're supposed to do with the shoes.
I grew up in sneaker culture, just growing up as a kid in the hood, but I grew up very poor and I couldn't afford name brand sneakers. It kind of fueled an obsession for me. When I moved to New York, I literally dressed like a boy, like now. And sort of at that time, it was not a thing that girls did. It just really wasn't. Because I was one of the only girls in the scene, I think that people noticed me, and I sort of made a name for myself dressing the way I did. In 2009, I was having a big birthday party. I wanted my birthday cake to be a pair of Jordan 3s. These are my favorite shoes. I want to have a giant cake version of them. The cake came out and it was like a big topic. It was like all over sneaker blogs. I went a month later to Kanye West's birthday party and then he had a cake version of the Yeezys, which, you know, I feel like I kind of inspired. Shortly after the party, I ran into a friend. We started talking about Jordans and I was like, oh, did you see my Jordan cake? And he was like, oh my God. He's like, that's right, you love Jordans. He's like, you should do a Jordan. I'm at Brand Jordan right now. He really called me the next day and had me on the phone with everyone from Brand Jordan and was like, okay, we're gonna make this. I was the first and only girl and non-athlete to collaborate with Brand Jordan. The idea for me was to create something for women to like have a shoe that was designed for them and make men lust after them. To come from the hood, not being able to afford Jordans, to actually get ridiculed for wearing Kmart sneakers, and to now be able to design a pair of Jordans, it was unreal. According to my family, I was wasting my money on sneakers. I was, I wasn't acting ladylike from a lot of people's standards. And I was just sort of like, whatever, I'm just doing me, I don't care. This came out of that moment. The benefit of staying like in your own world creates visions that come true, dreams that come true.
We're all from these streets. There's no way you could live in this city and not take from it. Even if you're not a designer and you're just a regular person, it inspires you to do stuff. The energy of this city, what it does, it becomes part of you. It's in your blood, it's in your psyche, and you're part of this rhythm of total chaos, but it's like a symphony. Love your Air Force. All the stores in New York at the time were very museum-esque, where you would come in, don't touch anything, ask me for some whatever, and I wanted to do the opposite and make it a user-friendly, where I was like, touch everything, whatever, be nice to the customers instead of being. A butcher shop is like that. So I started gathering stuff from the meatpacking district. Meat hooks, I had the refrigerator, and then I packaged all the t-shirts into cellophane trays like they were little meat. It was the first concept store in New York where something was built to look like something, but it was actually for something else. I believed in it, and I thought it was what New York needed at the time because everybody was too serious. Everybody's always way too serious. At the end of the day, we're just fucking making t-shirts, you know what I mean? Like, who gives a We have this opportunity to make a shoe. When you go down to the Blazer and the Dunk and the Air Force, they're very flat shoes. And I figured if we're gonna be on our feet all day, might as well have a comfortable shoe. So for me, the Air Max 90 was perfect. I get an email and they're like, hey man, if you want this shoe done, you gotta get it done, gotta send it in by Monday so we can have it for the next season. And I was like, yeah, I got the idea. I didn't have the idea. It's like Saturday night, early Sunday morning. I'm in the supermarket and I'm like, all right, I want to get a bacon, egg, and cheese. And then I was like, well, f it, I can just make it myself. So I start walking around, I get my eggs and I get my bread and my cheese, and I'm walking and then I see the bacon. And then it was that aha moment. And I was like, I could make an Air Max 90 look like bacon. I was like, and I just saw it in my head. And I was like, either this is gonna be really funny or it's gonna be really whacked. I like those odds. The shoe comes out. It doesn't immediately take off. And then people are like, yo, but you gotta understand, look at how conceptual it is, and it's about the meat store, and nobody's ever done that. And then kids started waking up, and then they were like, oh, I gotta get these. I gotta get these. Dope. And then it sold out. It's still to this day, man, it pops up on Instagram and people are like, yo, this is fire, blah, blah, blah. It warms my heart that people love this design. And here we are today, you know, talking about it 15 years later. So these are the Hyperstrike, and there's only 48 pairs of these. When you look at raw bacon, there are these dry spots that I noticed. So I had them make these. So when they had the leather, they kind of scuffed them up in random places. So when they assemble the shoe, these move around. You don't see, they're not all the same. And when you look at these, this truly is what bacon looks like in the package.
Everything around that was too perfect. The name of the store was Dave's Quality Meats. The name of the shoe is Bacon. That's too perfect. It might not mean anything to New York City, but it is a perfectly told story.
The Pigeon SBs, the staple.
You don't want my story. You don't want my story. The camera don't need my story. I'm about that shoe because I never got it. I just never did, and I knew him and I couldn't get it.
So we were actually looking at different ways of sort of embracing New York onto a dunk. I approached it by saying, I want to make a shoe that is very wearable, but also somehow immediately unique, and you know that it's not inline and normal, you know? So that's why we decided to go with the pigeon.
The bird represents New York City streets. Those are ghetto birds. Pigeons are ghetto birds, but I just thought the colors were good. It looked like a bird.
The day after this came out, the clientele changed completely. It wasn't the same 50 sneakerheads that we always saw. It was like, you know, Wall Street dudes in suits. This shoe didn't invent sneaker culture, I think it just put it on the map.
Over the years, I picked up 6 pairs, which is kind of crazy. The first pair I came across was from a collector in DC. His buddy lived in Toronto and was moving some really rare stuff. So once I got it, I was like, this is it. I have the shoe. And it was perfect because it had been worn so that I wouldn't feel guilty wearing it. But then once I got it, I was like, well, what if I can find a dead stock pair in my size? And then it just became this obsession. The pigeon dunk became my grail. I feel like it epitomized everything New York.
Always nice to kind of be in a retail shop like this. So much of New York history is kind of defined by Nike SB, and I don't know if a retail store's ever had this kind of stuff at one place at one time. But it's just super cool to kind of see so many shoes that are born and bred from New York that span like decades of product. I've worn every shoe that's in my size, but sometimes if I see something that's super, super good that doesn't have my size, I'd rather own it, even though I can't wear it, just to be like, I love this shoe. Like, I look at it as art. When you don't wear it, I look at it as art. But hopefully everybody wears their shoes, because then, like, how cool is it to be able to wear your favorite piece of art every day?
If If you have the ability to wear some that you like a lot, you should really wear them. At the end of the day, it's just sneakers. And I believe that they're just sneakers. You're gonna like some more than you're gonna like some others, but they're leather and rubber.
Sneaker culture, you know, it was like a subculture. It was like sort of like this underground thing from the inner city. It was like a way to floss, a way to like look really cool. Like it was a part of the uniform. To see it go from a place of being kind of like tacky to now fashionable and fashion forward is phenomenal.
We all grew up in the same city and we all sort of did this thing together. You know, when you see it again and kids are bugging out. And I'll be like, wow, I was a part of that generation that started this. I had something to do with that mayhem. I apologize to some moms and dads that their kids are off nuts now because of what we've done, but they're gonna be the next generation to make the next kids all crazy, you know, and I can't wait to see it. I could be proud or happy that I was part of a cultural movement in this sneaker world.